Can you tell me about like any of your like background experience with other people with diabetes, just like anything you've experienced or know about?
Yeah, it's genetic in my family. My sister was 9 years old, who she was the first person in our family, my birth family, and she had symptoms of being thirsty all the time, going to the bathroom all the time, and they found out she was a juvenile diabetic, and she's 60, so this is 50 years ago, and there wasn't as much technology then, but so that was a huge hurdle for her to overcome and for us to support her. It was scary because I was little. And then when my father was in his late 60s, he has since passed, he became kind of like me, like all of a sudden diabetic, needs insulin. He had Alzheimer's though, so we didn't know how far it had been, you know what I mean, like occurring previously. And then I have two siblings that were type 2 as adults, became diabetic. It's an autoimmune disorder. I don't know if you're aware of that. So it's like your body recognizes your pancreas as a foreign body and it attacks it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then my son, his senior year here, the year before, he was losing weight, constantly thirsty. He looked skeletal. And then I was working, I had our room upstairs, and it was at the beginning of COVID, and he came to my room and he said he couldn't breathe. And I immediately left and I took him to an urgent care and they tested him for COVID because that's all everybody thought was anything, And it was negative, so I took him home and I called the doctor and he said maybe give him a breathing treatment and watch him for a little bit. If it doesn't get better, take him to the hospital. So we gave him a breathing treatment. He fell asleep on the couch and I just sat there, with him. The next morning, it was really bad. He really couldn't breathe. Meaning like he was gasping, like his lungs weren't working. I took him to Troy Beaumont. They handled it terribly. They put him in a COVID waiting room where people had no masks and were positive for COVID. He was negative. I didn't have COVID. And they left us there for like 2.5 hours. And it was a terrible experience. Anyway, they finally got a spot in the pediatric area, and a nurse came in and said, he's type 1 diabetic. And I said, no, he's not. He's not. And she goes, yeah, that's what we found out. And I said, well, is somebody gonna come in and explain this to me? And she goes, you mean like a therapist? And I was so upset. I go, no, like a doctor. I'm like, sorry, but like a real doctor. Yeah. And yeah, that really pissed me off. But so he was in the hospital for 11 days in ICU. It was really scary. His sugar was like over 1100. It was horrible. He could have died. He was close to death. And then it was a new norm for him. He had to learn how to take shots, and we had to learn how to, what kinds of things he could eat to minimize his sugar. It was scary. It's terrifying. If you become a parent, you realize when you see your child who's 18 your age, exactly at this time, it was March, and he couldn't do his senior year. He couldn't do the rest of his senior year. Like, he had to work from home, and he couldn't get sick. He couldn't get COVID because it would have killed him at that point. More than you probably expected to hear.
Yeah. So, thank you though. Another one, tell me about like your kind of like day-to-day routine with like you and like your kids with diabetes, like, and like financial kind of routine, like with insulin, just like summarize that.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
I'll try to be brief.
Yeah.
You have to check your sugar if you're not on an insulin pump or have a Dexcom. Do you know what these things are?
Yeah.
So before I got a Dexcom, before I got an insulin pump, I wanted to check my sugar with a blood prick, a blood glucose test. when I got up, when I get waking before I ate, and 2 hours after I ate for every meal. So about 5-6 times a day. And then you are given a calculation to cover whatever carbs you eat. So I would take a shot based on a ratio. If I ate 50 carbs, I would take 5 units. So my ratio started at 1 to 10. So 1 unit per 10 grams of carbs that I was ingesting. So if I just had lettuce and tuna and cheese, I didn't need any insulin, at least for the meal. So there's two types of insulin treatment. There's a bolus and a basal. The bolus is the meal insulin, and as a diabetic, your body is always having difficulty metabolizing glucose in your body. So you need a long-acting insulin, and that's like a 24-hour insulin. It's called the basal rate. It's almost like it's running underneath. It's like running underneath like oxygen, kind of. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was the routine then, and then same for my son. And then when we became aware of the Dexcom, we were prescribed, you have to, get it from a doctor. And it's a meter that, like, you can, I don't know, have you ever seen one?
Yeah, it's kind of like a patch on it.
Yeah, with like a little computer, like a little transmitter.
Yeah.
And then the transmitter lasts 90 days, so you take it off when the sensor is the little patch thing, and that lasts 10 days.
Yeah.
So you need 3 a month, 3 sensors a month. The transmitter you can use for 3 months. You just clean it with alcohol and put it back in. Then you reprogram, then we switch to the pump. So I'll get to that in a second. So the cost of the sensors per month for one person with no insurance is like $800. Just the sensors, just the patch.
Yeah.
The transmitter is about $500 for 3 months with no insurance. So that's just for the Dexcom. That's not insulin. It's not needles. The needles come in pens, and then they have the needle that you put on the pen. You pierce the membrane and then you screw it on, so they're disposable. So the needles cost, I don't know, $100 a box. The pens of insulin, I can't remember because I've been on the pump for a couple years. But essentially, insulin will easily cost $1,000 a month. And then the supplies is probably, if I did not have insurance, I don't make enough to cover that, even if I didn't pay rent. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't make, just between you and I, like a regular salary. So imagine having to pay out of pocket to $2,200 a month just to live.
Yeah.
Most people can't really handle it. So the pump is a very, this packet, I'll show it to you, so if you buy it, I mean, you can probably buy one, like, maybe not used, but what do they call it, like refurbished for maybe $5,000 or $6,000. The insurance, I was billed $22,000 for this.
Really?
They billed my insurance, which is probably way more than what it should have been billed.
Yeah. Because
the technology's been around for like 20 plus years. But the pump is, it consists of a computer and a cartridge, and you fill the cartridge with insulin. It lasts for about 3-4 days. You have to program it, and then it goes up the tube, and then it goes into a site, which I have attached here.
Yeah.
So you have to buy the sites, you have to buy the cartridges, and the tubing, and I forgot about that. So it'd be like 20 more than that. It could be, unless you like get, there's ways around it. Like you can contact the manufacturer. You can say, I need coupons for this stuff, or you can, ask your doctor, other ways. If you can't afford it, there are some ways to help, financial assistance for diabetics. Insulin's the biggest one. Recently, legislation was passed that insulin should not be over $35 a month for diabetics.
Mhm.
You have to pay out of pocket. If you bill the insurance, there's no restriction, which is kind of what screws us because they can bill the insurance whatever they want.
Yeah.
So the daily routine is, without a pump, is you check your blood, you calculate your insulin, you make sure you have your supplies. You can't leave the house unless you have a backup plan for everything.
Mhm.
With the pump, the backup plan is I have supplies in my drawer, I have stuff in the car. You have to refrigerate insulin. So if you're going to be far from home, you have to bring a cooler with an ice pack, and keep it cold. Just with a site change, you might need a set of everything if you're away from home.
Mhm.
But with the pump, it's easier on a daily basis. You take it off to take a shower, you put it back on, you can stop the insulin on the computer, and then, you just watch what you eat. Sometimes the site fails, like there's a kink, and then all of a sudden your sugar is 500, and you're like, what the heck is going on? I didn't eat that much.
Mhm.
But it's not getting anything.
Yeah.
So it's not like the worst, it's not cancer, but it's inconvenient.
Mhm. I bet. What advice could you give to like any like children that are just getting diabetes or anyone who wants to like learn more about it?
There are resources out there. There's like Facebook blogs and stuff that parents can get on. Mrs. Stowe has a son who's type 1 diabetic. He was like 3 when he was diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, everything is different. Like if your kid gets sick, you don't know how sick it's going to be. Sometimes before you're getting sick, like their sugar will spike. So if you have a kid and you can't figure out what's wrong with them and their sugar, you can't control their sugar, they might be getting sick, like an infection, like strep or an ear infection. So there's different factors that cause your sugar to go up. There's stress, emotional stress, mental stress. Heat, I found out, I was in Vegas in the summer, the second year I became diabetic, and it was really hot.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, couldn't breathe hot, and I could not get my sugar under 300. I just couldn't get it under 300. I didn't eat any carbs, I drank a ton of water, I walked. So I found out later it was the heat. It was putting so much stress on my body. So there's heat, there's emotional stress, there's physical stress, and sickness.
Mm-hmm.
So to look out for a high sugar, there's a range that you can tell when it's okay to waver it. You obviously don't want to be 400 or 500, but it's not going to kill you.
Yeah.
1,000 could, 800 could, but the danger is a low. So diabetes is like a pendulum. So when your sugar can raise, it's like on a high, but it can also bounce down and swing back in the opposite direction and be a low. You can die from a low. It can be fatal. So typically you want to have your sugar between like 80 and 120. That's a healthy normal range.
Mm-hmm.
Mine's been 43 and it's an awful feeling. But you just have a glucose tab. Some people like to have chocolate or candy. You need sugar right away because your body's like, I don't know how the lows start, to be honest. I think it's either too much insulin or I guess it's too much insulin, or you expend too much. You burn off your sugar faster than your body. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's just, this I don't have a lot of lows, so I didn't really.
It's okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I did. Thank you. Like with the 'cause you obviously you work with like kids here that might have you work with any people here that have diabetes?
I have.
Okay. Any like notable experience or like experience with a certain kid that's had diabetes here?
We had one of our students who, honestly, you notice moods can change. If their
Mhm.
sugar's changing, your mood can change. Like, you can get very irritable. Or you can become kind of like, when it's dropping, you can become kind of absent. So, mood and the way they behavior can change. They have to make sure that they're following their insulin schedule. So when they know what time they're going to eat, they have to go get their shot 10 to 15 minutes before. Miss Kathy can house the insulin for students. She can keep everything because it has to be refrigerated.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing to pay attention to are changes in mood. Try to get it early. If you do have a diabetic student or somebody who's diabetic, if they're acting a little off, ask them what their sugar is.
Yeah.
How are you doing? Like, are you dropping this? This is handy because it tells you, is it, so like right now, mine's a little high.
Mm-hmm.
I had a protein bar
Yeah.
for breakfast. And I took insulin, but see how it's horizontal? That
Mhm.
means you're steady.
Yeah.
It's good. It's not shooting up.
Mm-hmm.
If it does like a clock, so you want it to be facing the right, like 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
If it starts to go to 4 or 5 o'clock, it's starting to drop. If it's straight down, it's totally dropping. Double arrows down is danger. Like,
Mhm.
eat something now. Have some orange juice.
Yeah.
Same with double arrows up, but it's not as dangerous. Like I said, the highs are not as dangerous as the lows.
Mm-hmm.
So you just got to watch behavior and mood.
Yep.
To make sure that there's something that you can do to help them.
Okay. I guess the last one would be, is there have you had any other health complications like heart disease, like anything like that so far?
Yeah, like since I became diabetic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've always had a mild heart disease, and it's become aggravated since I became diabetic. My hands, I have joint issues
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have before, like tendon issues.
Yeah.
Extreme fatigue, tired. I can't do the same like all day gardening and then
Mm-hmm.
take a shower and go out to dinner with my husband. Like, I can't do that. If I garden all day, I'm down for the evening, and the next day I'm just exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, my endurance, fatigue. That's it. Socially, it's awkward. You go to the workroom, and it's like, oh, here, try a muffin. Oh, here, try a donut.
Yeah.
Did you try this, Sharon? I'm like, I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
If I get popcorn, I have to have this much.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's a little awkward, but it's not the end of the world. I can manage. I'm a big girl,
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
it's hard for a kid.
Yeah.
Imagine if you had to dramatically change the way you ate. My son likes to eat. He's a
Yeah.
big kid.
Me too.
Not fat.
No, yeah,
He's
but
just
yeah.
like a muscular, strong kid.
Yeah.
He likes to he's 21. He likes to drink.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to count everything. So it's harder when he's hanging out with his friends.
Yeah.
And they don't have to do that. And psychologically.
Mm-hmm.
But that's it.
All right. Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you, Zach. I
Nice
hope
to
that
meet you.
helps.